So I'm going to talk about everything I've learned in 20 years of understanding computer game design in 5 minutes, and everything I've learned about CrossFit as an athletic training culture in another 5 minutes. So it's very compressed. So we're talking about behavior change and culture. And there are some amazing lessons from online games, because these are persistent environments in which people behave, they interact. They interact between two people, between groups of people, groups interact with other groups. So one of the lessons that we have from online games and persistent worlds is this whole notion of player types. And there was a paper by Richard Bartle called Hearts, Clubs, Diamonds, Spades, Players Who Suit. At this point, it was multi-user dimensions, right? This was text MUDs before there were even persistent worlds, but the lessons carried through to these fabulous 3D environments. And in fact, any persistent environment in which people interact individually, pairwise, and in groups, and this includes social media. So you have player types, you have the achievers who want to succeed within the rule structure of the game, right? They're the fastest gun on the West. They want to be on the top of that leaderboard. You have the explorers who are driven by their desire for knowledge. They just want to know what's under every rock, right? When they figure out the game, they actually stop playing it because it's checkmate in 4. You have the socializers who view the game as a staging ground for their relationships. And then the griefers or the killers who primarily derive their satisfaction from making life miserable for others. And every persistent environment, and this includes our corporations, includes all these player types and must to some degree accommodate them. And this is very important to understand. And there's all kinds of interesting dynamics depending on the ratios of these player types. So in any persistent environment, you have a life cycle. And this becomes important when people start talking about their apps, right? And everyone's in health, particularly now, is in this first phase of someone's going to do something, and then we're going to give them points, right? And all these crazy little extrinsic rewards that wear off. But you have to think in terms of a life cycle. So someone's a novice, they become a journeyman, they acquire mastery, they're an expert, and then at some point you want them to be a leader or a village elder, right? So you go from learning from your community, learning from your information environment and your peers, to being actually a source of information and help and inspiration to your community. And this is the way, on a primal level, we understand our role in our village, in our community. And to some degree, if you want to be successful in the long term, you have to be able to replicate this kind of life cycle. Another tool for thinking that I use a lot is the sort of conscious competence learning matrix, right? And this came from California in the 1970s. This is as old as dirt. But it's the idea that when people are acquiring a skill, they start at this point of unconscious incompetence. They don't have the skill, but they don't know how much they suck. So they're really happy. Then they move into this phase of conscious incompetence. Oh no, I realize how much work I'm going to have to do in order to learn how to play the clarinet. This is not a fun place to be. This is where most people quit, right? And they quit in all sorts of things: musical instruments, fitness, learning a language. They quit at the point when they realize how much work there is between them and mastery. Then you get to conscious competence, which is, you know what, I can actually do this. You know, I'm feeling good about this. And then unconscious competence, which is a place that most people never get, which is they're so good at it, they're not even aware of it. You put a cucumber in front of a chef, he goes bing, 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 bing with the knife, and the cucumber is sliced, right? And so this is sort of ultimately this cycle through conscious competence to unconscious competence from a place where people don't know how bad they are. And this is where we kind of all are right now in health, right? We have, in the United States, 26 million diabetics. 7 million of them don't know they're diabetic. They're unconsciously incompetent, right? And then when they find out they're diabetic and all the things that they have to do in order to gain mastery in that situation, it's a really unhappy place. And as a society, this is the transition that we're all going through, and there's a lot of torque. So, on to CrossFit. I love this image. It's in the photo insert section of my book. Because if you look at this woman who, when she started, was 200 pounds and could barely lift the stroller she was using to transport her babies. And you look at her face, right? There's triumph, right? There's a moment of intensity that comes before this particular moment. And it's deeply uncomfortable. She's just been through an ordeal. She's been in a competition. And you have transcendence, you have joy, you have pride, you have all of this stuff that goes to the heart of her identity. And the thing I've learned here is that Maslow's hierarchy is upside down. We talk about the hierarchy of needs, right? You get your food, you get your shelter, your physical security, you try and figure out who you want to have sex with, and then the lucky few get to self-actualize, right? And this is what we're taught in our sort of Psych 101. But it's upside down, because in order to affect real change, identity has to shift. And you see this happen when people become parents. They change all sorts of things about their lives because their identity changes. You see some semi-criminal 19-year-old go to Marine boot camp. They unscrew his head, they take out whatever is there, they fill it with Marine, and he comes out, his identity is different, and he does everything different, and that drives everything from, what people eat, who they hang out with, their level of exercise, their discipline, everything. And this athletic subculture has mastered the art of getting people to change their identity so that part of their identity is being able to do difficult and deeply uncomfortable things together. Who's familiar with the term snow angel, right? You go out in the snow and you lie down in it and you go like this and it makes an angel. Well, these are sweat angels. So CrossFitters say they sweat angels. It's disgusting, yes. But you'll see these prints like in every CrossFit box, and it's sort of this artifact that people have gone through this ordeal together. And the quote in my book is that secretly every CrossFitter believes that the people in his box will be the ones to survive the zombie apocalypse. Because there's this bonding that comes out of the fact that we witness together that we can all do these difficult things. And that reinforces a sense of membership and like, I'm part of a pack. That, the young and the old, the 65-year-old lady doing that box jump has enough courage so that we can all make it as a pack. Mental toughness, right, is a big part of it. And I show these pictures. These are amputees, right? These are guys who've had their legs blown off in Afghanistan and Iraq, double amputee on the left. And the T-shirt he's wearing says, "The voice in your head that says you can't do this is lying." Right? And these are not people who necessarily start out as stars, right? But there's a culture of, we can all do this. We're going to embrace the suck and just do this. There's a transformation of identity among women. So the motto on Facebook is strong as the new skinny, right? This woman carrying her BFF and a 70-pound dumbbell, when she started, she could barely run a mile. And she was a contractor in Iraq, and she realized, wow, if something bad ever happens, I'm going to have to be rescued. I'm going to be a burden to the people around me. I don't like that. And so she started training. The woman on the right, there's no mirrors in a CrossFit gym, right? So getting away from this aesthetic gym, fitness, airbrushed model bunny ideal into something that's about function and about what your body can actually do completely transforms female body image and identity. So that lady on the rope, she doesn't give a rat's ass about firm and tone. She's doing her own stunts. And lastly, there's this notion of ritual and the importance of ritual. And I delve into this whole notion of sport is the ritual sacrifice of human energy, and there's a whole bunch of really interesting classical literature about that goes back to the ancient Greeks and the Iroquois Indians. But the power and importance of ritual, and I think we lose that. And in first world societies, we live in a kind of de-ritualized society. But when you find a way to bring ritual back into people's life, it resonates them almost on a genetic memory level, and they feel that it's important, and they don't even know why. But we shouldn't lose sight of this. And the last thing, the example that I'll use, is there's this product called Hero Wraps. So in the old days, the caveman would, kill a bear or a wolf and wear the tooth, right, or wear the skin to give himself the strength of the fierce animal. These are wrist wraps for weightlifting to support your wrists, and they're made from donated military uniforms. And when you buy one, you get a card with information about the name of the person, their military and fitness accomplishments, and their Fran time, which is the time of the sort of dreaded workout in CrossFit. And they're all super badass. And you get to wear the tooth of the wolf, right? And that gives you the contagious magic of this warrior. So none of this stuff ever dies. We have these kinds of primal cultural practices that we repeat, we reinvent, and then when we do it, we feel like something really important has happened. And so as we think about data, all of these data is being driven by people who are not fundamentally different than they were 10,000 years ago. And that we need to keep this in mind as we define and understand sort of what people seek and where they want to go. So thank you.